I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and yeah, the high-end devices are dominating the conversation right now. Between the Galaxy S3, the Note 2, and the upcoming HTC One X, they're commanding a lot of mind share, but there are some awesome mid-range devices out there that are going to be great in this holiday season for mom, for grandma, and more. Two of those are the Samsung Galaxy Stellar and the Samsung Galaxy Victory 4G LTE. Both pack dual-core Snapdragon S4 CPUs, 4-inch displays, decent cameras, and nice big batteries. And on top of that, they have Android 4.0. It's a dogfight. Which one's the best? Is it the Galaxy Stellar or the Victory? We'll find out. But first, special thanks to our partners at Best Buy Mobile for giving us devices like these for use in our One Paw Bandit giveaway game, which we turn around and give to you on the site at instantwin.phonedog.com. When you go into Best Buy Mobile to get either of these devices, you'll walk out working. They'll help you set up your email, your contacts, your camera settings, everything. So when you walk out the door, you're getting 4G LTE, you're downloading things at super fast speeds, and more at Best Buy Mobile. Let's take a look. Stellar, Victory, which one will walk out with the gold medal? We'll find out in the dogfight, which rolls right now. The mobile conversation lately has been centering around high-end devices like the Galaxy Note 2, the Galaxy S3, the One X Plus, but you know what? Those aren't for everybody. You know, we all love our high-end devices, but perhaps for a first-time smartphone buyer, or hey, even a 16, 17-year-old getting their first smartphone, getting their car, their license. Now it's time for a smartphone, but mom and dad don't want to spend $199 or $249 for a device. This can be a great option for a lot of different people. It's a dogfight between the Samsung Galaxy Stellar on Verizon Wireless and the Samsung Galaxy Victory 4G LTE, definitely a mouthful in the name department, on Sprint. Both of these devices are available now. This one at Verizon is free with a 2-year agreement. This one is $99.99 at Sprint. Granted, I'm sure you can find it for less than $100 through third-party retailers, but already into this dogfight, a minute in, and I can tell you that's going to be a sticking point because you're looking at these devices, and for the most part, they're relatively similar in terms of specs. But this one, $100, you're like, hey, for $100 on AT&T, I can get the One X, I can get the Lumia 900 for $50, and obviously they'll be doing holiday promotions as Q4 ramps up. So you're like, why in the world are these devices so expensive given that, this one's free, this one's $99.99? It's going to be one of those things. I think Sprint will price it for that for a period of time, and then they'll use holiday promotions to bring it down to $49.99 or maybe $29.99, or actually rarely do devices hit the $29 price tier. It'll probably go down to free. But to give you a quick recap of specs here, you've got a 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon S4 CPU over here, MSM 8960. Now here's what's interesting. Over here, it's also I'm sorry, I said 1.5 gigahertz, 1.2 gigahertz on both of these devices. This is also a dual-core Snapdragon S4 CPU, but they bill it as a light CPU. But what's funny is both of these are billed as 1.2 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon CPUs under the MSM 8960 code. So, but this one, for whatever reason, is billed as a light CPU. This one is not billed as a light CPU. So it's one of those weird processor naming schemes where I'm not quite sure why they did that, but we'll take a look in part 2 in Quadrant Standard and see which one comes out on top, so stay tuned for that. Display wise, you've got a 4-inch display on both of these devices, 480 by 800 pixels. You've got a 3-megapixel camera over on the Galaxy Stellar, no flash in this device, no HD video capabilities over here. Then you've got 4G LTE capabilities on Verizon. You've got a 2,100 milliamp hour battery on this device as well. So think about this, same battery size as the Galaxy S3, much smaller display. Internals are much smaller in terms of camera, in terms of that, so I would imagine battery life to be pretty decent. We'll talk about that in part 2. Now over here, a little bit of a different design, as you can see on both of these devices. No physical camera button over on the Galaxy Stellar. You do get a physical camera button over on the Victory 4G LTE, and the power button has been moved to the top over here. Like I said, 1.2 gigahertz dual-core CPU, 4-inch display over here, 5-megapixel camera on this device with 720p HD video recording. So if you're debating between these two devices and camera is important to you, then it's most likely going to be the Victory. The Victory is going to be the Victory. I had to make that joke, I'm sorry. 5-megapixel camera here with 720p HD video recording. Also has a 2,100 milliamp hour battery, and it's running Sprint's 4G LTE, hence the name, in select markets that support Sprint's 4G LTE. Charlotte is not one of those markets just yet. It's supposed to get it by the end of 2012, along with a slew of other markets that were announced prior to the iPhone 5 launch. Now you can see some design differences, like I was saying. Volume rocker on both sides over here. Micro SD card slot on both of these devices in the same spot. and then micro USB charging port down at the bottom in the same spot, along with a 3.5mm headphone jack up top on both of these devices. They're also both running Android 4.0, also known as Ice Cream Sandwich with TouchWiz, Samsung's proprietary user interface, but you'll see some differences with the buttons down here. Now, both buttons are capacitive, and this is what throws you. These look like physical buttons, and obviously, when you get up close, I'll show you, and we'll wait for it to focus in so you can take a look here. They look like physical buttons, and so you intend to press them down, and just kind of by default, I don't know if it's a subconscious thing, you have a tendency, at least for me, and I've noticed in a couple of other people that have worked with this device, you kind of do what I call the old man thing, where you push it down, and because you expect it to be a physical button, you're pushing it down like a physical button, or like a home button on the iPhone, or like a home button on the Galaxy S3. You expect it to be a physical button, and you're like, wait a second, these are capacitive just because of the way that they're laid out. But you have a menu, a home, and a back button. Of course, press and hold the home button, excuse me, I can't talk today, and you can access recent applications. Back here, you've got back, home, recent applications, and then of course a dedicated menu button here as well, which is a little bit different given Android 4.0, also known as Ice Cream Sandwich's ability to do on-screen buttons. We've seen that with a lot of recent devices, the Motorola devices, and more, so it's kind of weird to see a physical menu button over here, at least in the position that it's in on the Galaxy Stellar, all the way over here to the right, as opposed to the Galaxy Note and the Galaxy S3 where it's over on the left. But let's talk a little bit about user interface here. 7 home screens on both of these devices, and despite running 1.2 gigahertz dual-core CPUs, which I can't believe I'm even saying that like it's a bad thing, but you know, in today's market, that's considered a mid-range processor. They're both very fast, and I have had no problems with speed whatsoever. It's one of those things, finally, mid-range Android devices, is if you can even call these mid-range Android devices, have made it up to the tier, at least, of kind of low high-end devices. These are very fast out of the gate. Out of the gate at free, despite the camera and despite some other features, this is a device I would carry from a speed perspective. I mean, it's very fast with little to no lag. You've got 7 home screens, a lot of customization. They brought a lot of the user interface things from the Galaxy S3 and the Note over to this device, and it's really nice. And it's nice to see these devices at a low price tier so people that don't want to spend $199 can take advantage of a device that's still good, but doesn't cost $200, which is really nice. So apps and widgets on both of these devices, as you can see up here. Typical TouchWiz layout, and then your home screens, or excuse me, your notification bars. A little bit different here, and this is something that I've kind of pegged Verizon on several times in recent reviews and dogfights. The ongoing Wi-Fi notification is obnoxious, and unfortunately, instead of having it up here where you can turn Wi-Fi on, which I'll turn it off actually on the Victory, you don't have it up here as a physical button. You've got it over here, and then of course you can scroll over and access some different stuff over there. We'll turn that back off. And whereas over here all you get is Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS sync, and screen rotation up the top. This is a little bit more of an implementation like the Note 2 and the Galaxy S3 where you can scroll through, but over here you get the ability to automatically brighten the display from the notifications bar. But back to what I was saying about the Wi-Fi notification, it's very annoying. Verizon assumes that because everybody's on tiered data plans, Wi-Fi is an option, and which it is. It's great to see that carriers are pushing Wi-Fi. That said, I can't remove this Wi-Fi notification. It's ongoing, and I think you'll find that if you've used something like the Galaxy S3 on AT&T, or you've worked with another Android device in the past, it just kind of, you come over here and you hit it by accident, and you're like, oh, okay, of course it turns on Wi-Fi, so Wi-Fi is going to come up, bam, Wi-Fi on. And it's just obnoxious. And another thing that's really frustrating, when I connect to office Wi-Fi, for example, even when Wi-Fi is off, it will auto-activate and ask me if I want to reconnect to my office Wi-Fi. So every time I do that, I have to physically forget the network so it doesn't do that when I walk in. Very annoying. Don't care for the implementation there, and I think a lot of people, at least people that are well-versed in phones, will find that annoying. Granted, for the first-time smartphone buyer, which this is obviously marketing towards, they may or may not care about that, but that's something that as a smartphone person, and as people out there that are watching this video that are well-versed in smartphones, I think you might find that kind of annoying. Let's take a look at the pre-installed applications over here on both of these devices, and you can go over here and see the downloaded applications on both units, stuff that I've downloaded during my testing. And of course, you got the physical applications that Verizon's installed. Amazon Kindle, MP3, Amex Serve, VCast apps, Audible. Get a lot pre-installed out of the gate here. IMDb, you got Let's Golf 3, you've got, let's see, Samsung's Media Hub comes pre-installed on both of these devices, as you can see here. And then you got Mobile Hotspot over here, My Verizon Mobile, Plants vs. Zombies, Quick Office. You got, let's go back through here, VCast Tones, Visual Voicemail, which is $2.99 per month on Verizon, VPN Client, VZ Navigator, and more. So you get a lot of Verizon bloatware out of the gate. Unfortunately, none of this can be uninstalled except for maybe the games. Let's take a look and see if the games can be uninstalled. Application Manager. Let's see. Maybe, I have hope. Maybe one of the games can be uninstalled. It looks like, unfortunately, the games cannot be uninstalled, and then with these it's just uninstalling the updates and not the actual application. So kind of annoying there. On the Sprint side, you don't get a whole lot out of the gate. You do get some stuff. We'll come over here and take a look. As you can see, you got Sprint Hotspot, Sprint ID, Sprint Zone, and then you got VPN Client, which is a Samsung thing, because I believe both of these devices are Samsung approved for enterprise, which is nice. Google Wallet over here as well. They may or may not be. I have to double check on that because they were changing some of that stuff around. But Google Wallet over here, and then so again, not a whole lot of Sprint stuff out of the gate. And then you can go into settings over here to applications, and you can see the stuff that I can uninstall from here. So it looks like all that Sprint stuff is unable to be uninstalled. Sprint Zone, you don't like it, too bad, it's got to stay on the device. Now this is something that really is, I see marketing towards first-time smartphone buyers. The Galaxy Stellar really talks about this in advertising. There's a home screen mode, as you can see here, and you can change the mode from standard mode over to starter mode. So if you're buying this for grandma, you're buying this for your mom, and she's totally new to smartphones, you can switch this over to starter mode, also known as easy mode on some of the Samsung devices. And you've got some nice widgets from the home screen here, some favorite apps, a physical keypad widget that's on the home screen, favorite contacts, and more, so you don't have to dive too much into the menu. And you'll notice when you're in starter mode, we'll start it up and then come back. So you can see the apps are still there, so it's still got very much of an Android look and feel in juxtaposition to the Pantech Flex, for example, which is on AT&T. When you change it to easy mode, it goes totally like feature phone on you. It's a little bit different over here. It does keep the Android look and feel, but you'll notice that you've got a physical keypad over here, making it much easier to type on. Now over on this device, you do not get that. You don't get the easy mode. That's not to say that this isn't, it's particularly hard to use, because TouchWiz, I think, within itself is great for a first-time smartphone buyer. That said, this is a nice little touch, and it's great to see that stuff over on this device. And before I say that, let me just make sure that those widgets aren't on the Victory 4G LTE. I didn't think they were, but I just wanted to double check. No keypad widget or favorites widgets, or I should say favorite apps widget, rather, over on this device. But 7 home screens on both. Let's take a look at messaging on both of these devices, and we'll load up a new one, and you can see here on both Samsung keypad, 4-inch display, relatively easy to type on if you're coming from something with a 3.2 to 3.7-inch display. We'll do a quick test here, and we'll say the Quick Brown Fox is, what's Quick Brown Fox? Enjoying the fall weather. And what it's doing is there are 2 different input types here. You've got the Samsung keyboard, and then you have a swipe-like input thing that you can do on both of these keyboards. And hey there is not a valid recipient. Let's just go ahead and switch that. Or we'll just do the Quick Brown Fox. Quick Brown Fox. And of course, typing issues galore. I'm not a huge fan of the Samsung keyboard on both of these devices, and just in general, I actually prefer third-party alternatives from Google Play. And you can get a bunch of stuff from Google Play. That said, you've got a couple of different options here. You can see Samsung keyboard. And even though Google Voice Typing is the only thing that comes out of the gate, you do get that swipe-like input on both of these devices, which you can turn off in the settings if you so desire. But again, 4-inch display, portrait to landscape transition, relatively responsive on both of these devices. Little to no lag. Been really impressed with that. And that said, you can download SwiftKey. You can download my favorite keyboard. There's a Jelly Bean keyboard that I downloaded on all my Android devices. I believe it's by John T-A-M-I or Tammy, John Tammy. You can find that in the Google Play Store, and I find that one to be relatively decent. SwiftKey, there's a ton of different options in the Google Play Store. Quickly, let's take a look at the web browser on both of these devices. We'll load up phonedog.com and take a look at the portrait to landscape transitions and pinch to zoom responsiveness. Now, Sprint's 3G, not the best in the world, but if you're in a 4G market, you'll really enjoy the speeds. It'll be nice to see Sprint, at least in the Charlotte area, pick up those 4G LTE speeds by the end of the year. This one is 4G LTE on Verizon, which is celebrating its 400th market in the U.S. next week. And again, portrait to landscape transition, nice and fast, pinch to zoom, relatively responsive on both of these devices, no lag whatsoever. So again, just because these devices are free and $100 respectively doesn't mean you're sacrificing a ton of features and a ton of performance. Obviously, you're not getting a huge HD display or an 8-megapixel camera, or maybe you're not getting Jelly Bean. But what you're getting is a nice smartphone that just because you're paying even free or $100 doesn't mean it's skimping out. Doesn't mean it's some crappy 800 megahertz processor, or it's running Android 2.2 where everything else is on Android 2.3 or Android 4.0. It's nice to see a device that rolls out of the gate, a starter device, an entry-level or a mid-range device in a lot of respects, running out of the gate with ice cream sandwich, with some decent specs, with a dual-core processor, a device that's relatively responsive across the board. Stay tuned for part 2. We'll have speed tests both on the network side and on the physical device side. We'll have camera tests and more. It's a wild dogfight. Who's going to win? Find out in part 2.